This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.
Canine Crew, it's time to just sell the damn thing. Doberman Dan is revealing his contrarian formula for getting a rush of new customers, building your business faster, and making the highest possible profits. Go to justsellthedamnthing.com to get your copy today.
Prepare yourself for the uncensored, nothing held back, no BS reality of how business and life really work. Doberman Dan is off the chain.
You are listening to the Off the Chain Show. Welcome back, Canine Crew, to another interesting edition. So last week we had Dr. Emily Letran, and we had to cut it short, but we're back this week with part 2. So let's jump in where we left off.
It was about dealing with courage.
Was it really? That was some issues you had to work through?
Yes, it was dealing with limiting beliefs. Because coming from that background, let's say if you say, okay, Emily, you got to put yourself out there and you need to tell people your story and et cetera, et cetera. That was a process. That was a process because, and the why that is bigger than my limiting belief was because, I know I could make a difference if I would have shared certain things, certain stories, not so that people sympathize with me back then or look up to me right now. No, as sharing so people know that you can make a difference if you want to, if you choose to, but you have to put in the work, right? Because they're just not going to change in your favor just because you hope it will or somebody help you. Because a lot of time it comes with you, doing the work. And so, for example, she would tell me, okay, Emily, I think you should be out there helping Asian women professional, right? Like that would be one of your group that you should work with. And I'm thinking, I don't know if I'm good enough. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I should be the one representing that group.
And these were questions this is interesting. This is fascinating to me. We just had a show about this 2 weeks ago. And this was after you've become a doctor, you've owned multiple practices, you're successful, and yet you still had to deal with the limiting beliefs?
Yes. And I think part of it is cultural because as Asians, like if you grow up in Asia, not here, the kids here are a little bit different, but because we are taught you're supposed to be modest, right? Mm-hmm. You're not supposed to brag. So we grow up the whole time like that. And in the family, it's the same thing. And then all of a sudden, so if you think about it, I've done all of that. I don't tend to share not the way I am right now. And so when it comes to like, okay, Emily, I think you should put yourself out there and represent this group and help this group. I'm thinking, but why me, right? There are other people who are very successful, who are very well known. I'm just a dentist and I want to help people with high performance coaching so they can do business better, right?
Right.
And I wasn't thinking, you know what, but you got to put yourself out there so you represent something, you represent a group. Representing meaning telling them that, we can all do this. And yeah, so it was actually a very big surprise to me for the first few months or so. And that's what I was working through. And I think it's because of all the conditioning, all the things that I've learned, whether it's from family or through living back home like that. I mean, for many, many years, it was very difficult dealing with people who look, let's call them upper class, right?
Tell me more about that. What do you mean?
Because I came to this country with nothing and I worked myself up and it took a lot of work. It took a lot of sweat and tears and whatever you want to call it. And I remember, let's say in high school, I'm in line to get a free lunch. And then I see these kids taking off in their private cars to go to, I don't know, I think it was in an Alberger or whatever it is. And I didn't even know what that was. So I guess because you're coming from that background and it's not so much, feeling lacking. It's just that I have to all of a sudden now I'm putting myself in this particular group where we're supposed to be well off and we're supposed to dress a certain way and act a certain way. But I guess it wasn't in my upbringing, right? Because of all the things that I've been through. It was a challenge. When I first came out and worked, it was the same thing. It was like, I don't know, this patient just sat down and he's in suit and tie, and I don't know if I'm good enough to treat him.
That's interesting. You know, that to me, this is fascinating because this is every entrepreneur I talk to, every successful business person, any person who wants to create something, any athlete, these are the top challenges, the how to and all that really pragmatic stuff. And that's not the challenge. The challenge is the limiting beliefs.
Right. And I think it also has to do with the ambition. If you're not an ambitious person, it's going to be a little harder, right, to face those limiting beliefs, because you just say, okay, I think this is good enough. I don't need to go to that next level.
That's true. There's no need to examine them. If there's no ambition, you're just going to stay at one particular level. Great. Stay there the rest of your life. But when you want to surpass those, then the most important, the most necessary work, you're forced to examine those issues, or you will just stay there.
Right. And so for me, the desire to make a difference is so big that I know that I have to step out. I actually tell people, I want a lot of people to know my story, because if you look around, there are a lot of, let's say there are a lot of Vietnamese professionals, but you don't see anybody talking about their story and wanting to make a difference. They're doing very well. They raise a family and everything, but they don't want to do that next thing, right? To establish themselves as a thought leader, for example.
Is that because of the cultural issues or basically?
I think part of it is a cultural issue. And the other one is probably because they don't have the ambition to do that. But see, for me, the ambition is not just, you know what, I want to quote, show off my heritage, where I come from. But the other part is I want people to know that things can be done. We can get things done if we follow certain strategy, if we invest and we learn from, mentors and coaches, people who can show you the way to do it, then it can be done. And I think I'm not a perfect example, but I'd be a pretty good example of that, because I have put myself in those rooms at those conferences to learn from certain consultants, teachers, leaders, whatever you call them. I put myself there. It wasn't like somebody invite me to come. I searched them out. I read in the book. I tell people my story of reading. I accidentally picked up Awaken the Giant Within, right? Mm-hmm. From Anthony Robbins. I read that one, and then I went to the reference. And then I look at all the references, and I started reading the reference.
Well, you dug really deep.
And that's how I got to Think and Grow Rich, And then and what I'm saying is I put myself on that path by choice, right? First, it was by accident. Then it was by choice. And it's because I have that ambition to, I'm here. I wonder if I can do a little better, right? And it's because it's here. It's a free country. You can compete whatever you want. Now back home, it quote unquote is you're not supposed to compete because everybody's supposed to be equal.
Right. And that's strongly reinforced, correct?
Right. So I'm over here and just like I share with you, I still remember standing in line and watching people driving off in their cars. And this is maybe in 10th grade, right? I think I started driving in the family car and when I was in like 12th grade. That's when I first got a car, and because we moved a little bit further out, so my aunt bought a car. Before that, it was you're walking or you're biking. That's all we had. And so I remember like looking at that and say, I want to know if I can do that. I want to be better. If I'm in school, I'm taking a lot of classes, so I think I want to do undergrad in 3 years instead of 4, and that's what I did. And like when I went to dental school, I said, I think I want to get a master's degree because that would give me an edge if I were to go to specialty. So I did that. So I did my dental degree and my master degree in the same 4 years. Usually people take 2 more years. So I do have that drive, to always do better, but it's because I'm looking. What my point is, when you look around and you say, hey, there's that person, they kind of similar to me, but they do better than me. I'm just wondering if I can do that. It wasn't in a spirit of competition. It was more like self-competition.
I like that. So dental school was at UCLA, correct?
Yes.
And your MS in 4 years. And did you immediately go into practice for yourself, or did you work for another doctor? I know at one point you owned 3 practices. So what happened after dental school?
No, after dental school, I did a residency, which is like a medical residency for dentists. And so we get exposed to different procedures. The whole idea is to build up your skill and then maybe to decide if you want to specialize. And so I did that, and I basically decided that I didn't like anything in particular, that I like a little bit of everything.
Typical entrepreneur.
Yeah. So I came out of that and I said, okay, I don't want to specialize. I'm just gonna go out and work. So I worked for 3 years, and I purposely worked for multiple offices at one time. So I worked for different bosses. Like I would have 2 or 3 bosses, and then they have different dental offices. So I would, I would go one in LA and one in San Bernardino. So they're about 100 miles apart, right? So I live in the middle, and so I'm doing that. I'm testing myself. I'm testing myself to see how much of a drive I can put up with. And in about 3 years, that's when I had my first baby. I remember I was working for this doctor, and he has a clinic, and the clinic is open from 9 to 9. So he would have 4 doctors any one day, and we work in shift. So you do 8 to 5, 9 to 6, 10 to 11, and 12 to 9. I mean 10 to 7, and then 12 to 9.
So it was always covered. There was always a doctor there.
It was always covered. And I remember one of those days, I probably was working the 12 to 9 shift. And I got home, and I was sitting on the sleeping bag, because we have the sleeping bag on the floor. So the baby can be on the floor. She's not going to fall off into something. And I remember I was holding her, and I was falling asleep.
Wow.
And I dropped her.
Oh, no.
But, I was sitting on the floor, and I dropped her on the floor. So it wasn't.
It's not like she had a far way to fall, but still.
Right. But that was, to me, that was the defining moment. I was just, okay, I don't think I should be working for people from 12 to 9 anymore. If I'm going to do that, I think I should do it for me. And that's when I started really looking for a practice. And so I got the first one. And then there was an opportunity, this entrepreneur thing, which I didn't know I had in me. One of the doctors that I was working for, he told me he was selling his practice. And I go, hey, why don't I just buy your practice, right? So then I bought the second one. And I used to I would take my daughter to work for the first, actually, I would stay home for the first 3 hours when she went to kindergarten. And then I would go pick her up, take her to the babysitter, and then I would go to work. Or I would go to work, and then I would leave work at 10:30 to go pick her up, take her to the babysitter, and then I would go back to work. And my second office was about 16 miles from home. So when she got to first grade, that became a little too much, because then she went to school from 8 to 2. And then at 1 o'clock, I'm like, I really need to leave now, to go pick her up. So I sold that office and bought one that is closer. And then there was an opportunity to buy a third one. One of my friends was moving to Vegas. He was looking for a buyer, and so I bought it. So I had 3 offices from 2005 to 2013 for 8 years.
That's a lot to deal with, along with a young growing family. So how did you juggle that and managing employees and all that?
Looking back, I guess it was a lot. When I'm in the middle of it, it was just part of life. I have associates who come in and work with me. I brought in specialists. So one of the things that, my friends tell me, you're crazy. It's been 25 years and you still like dentistry. And I said, yeah, it's because I don't do what I don't like. I brought in the specialists to do the procedures that I don't like to do.
Smart.
So I don't stress myself out for other people.
There's a big takeaway for me. Hire other people to do the stuff you don't like.
Yeah, and imagine this is before I even know Dan Kennedy.
So you figured this stuff out on your own.
Yeah, I've actually figured this out. So it was funny when I started reading his books. I'm just like, hey, I think I was doing some of this. Or when I actually, I was in Brendan Bouchard's seminar, and he's talking about all that. I'm thinking, about the high performance habits. I'm thinking, I'm already doing all this, right? So to me, it just made sense if I was to teach it. It was I would learn the process that he designed, but the habits, the practices, I was already doing it. So it just made a lot of sense for me to go down on that path.
It does. It makes a lot of sense. Did you go with the suggestion that your mentor said? And did you focus on other successful Asian business owners? Are you focused on people in dentistry or what, like, who's your target avatar? Who do you work with?
Yes. And you're going to laugh because it took me 2 years to follow what my mentor said.
That makes sense. I believe that.
I fought it every step.
Well, I can see why. I mean, there's there's all the cultural issues, and I can see why.
Right. Because she would mention it and I say, okay, I'll think about it. Like, maybe you should do this. Okay, I'll think about it. And I'm doing everything else except for those specific things. This year is when I specifically say, okay, Mom, because I call her Mom, she's my business mom. Say, okay, Mom, this year I'm gonna start putting myself out in front of dentists and other professionals, right? The professional here, what I'm saying is people similar to me, they have a business, they have customer or clients waiting for them in the waiting room. They got to juggle schedule. They got to deal with a team of staff. Maybe they deal with vendors, and then they go home and they got kids and they got spouse. And then they have their passions, their hobbies that they can't get to. And if you're Asian, you probably also have your parents that you have to take care of. The whole thing, right? If you're in that situation and maybe you're frustrated or maybe you feel that you're burning out, maybe you feel like, you know what, I don't enjoy going to work anymore. It's time to have that conversation because I do all that. And I would say, I'm not saying that I'm happy all the time, but I'm happy doing whatever I do in my life. And it's a choice. And it's something that I know that I can bring to my life. Like I will bring the joy to my life, which is one of the things that Brendan Bouchard preaches, right? Is bring the joy. Nobody's going to give you the joy. You gotta give yourself the joy. So when you know that you're responsible for a lot of things in your life, then you just stop blaming people. You just stop complaining and you just start looking at yourself and say, okay, what can I do different to make this better? So for example, this year, I'm going to have my third seminar in 2 weeks in Dallas, and it's for dentists. And my vision is to have multiple seminars in the country, and it would be for professionals, dentists, doctors, chiropractors, attorneys, CPA. They kind of have they're serving in a similar fashion. Like I said, they have, the waiting room, they have the clients. People may come in late. People come in, they don't want to pay. People come in and they, quote, waste your time. Mm-hmm. and you have the schedule. I mean, I just stopped going, leaving work to pick up my kids from school 2 years ago. So from 1990, so it would be 2001, which is when my daughter started going to kindergarten, from 2001 until about 2016. So that's 15 years or so. I always leave work every day, say about 2:00, go pick up my kids from school, take them to the babysitter or take them back home, and then go back to work and work from 4 to 6.
That's
every
cool.
Single day, right? And I made that choice. And so then I hear people say, well, I'm missing my kids. I feel like I don't spend enough time with them. And I'm here to say, well, take 2 hours off of your schedule. Go pick up your kids,
Basically, you're teaching people to structure their business so they can do those things.
Right. And if they wonder if it's possible, they can look at me because it is possible.
You've done it. It's possible. You can help them do it. So I hear this about dentists. We'll definitely many people in different medical specialties, high income, but lots of hours, high stress. So, like, how often do you have to deal with that? That the business has overtaken their lives?
I think first, and not just professionals, we just all need to get very clear in what's important to us. The same people who are complaining that I don't have enough time for my family and I'm stuck at work, they need to make a decision. Is work most important or is it the family? Like if you have to prioritize, you got to give one number one and one number two. And whichever choice you make, that's up to you. But then you need to accept it and stop bitching about it.
Good advice.
And because once you get it very clear, you know what? No, my family comes first. Then you make the choices, the actions according to that particular choice that you made. I'll give you a very quick example. One of my clients is an orthodontist, and we started working together. And she would say, you know what? I don't have time to go. I really want to go to my whatever yoga class or whatever, and it's at 5:30, and I just can't leave work. And I asked her, what time is the last patient? And she said, last patient ends at 5. And I said, well, why don't you leave? And she said, well, I have paperwork and I have, like she would name the typical 20 things that we all think that we need to do. So I gave her a challenge. I said, next week, I'd like for you to leave right after the last patient is done and go to the gym or whatever the class is. And if somebody die, office burned down, let me know. Right? I mean, so just try it. So the next Monday, I got a text, and I shared this in the group with the coaches. I got a text, and it's 5:15, and the text say, "I'm leaving." The office.
And the office didn't burn down, and nobody died, right?
And nobody died. Yeah, everything was fine. And to me, it's a shift in how you think. It's looking at things a little. Looking at things at a different perspective, because sometimes I think we here, like, the professionals especially, we think we're the only one who can do the work. And I remember a long, long, long time ago when I first realized that I wasn't the only one. When I took off for maternity leave in my own office, right? Because I'm the only one working there. I'm important. And I came back and, people weren't asking for me. The patients, right? They didn't miss me. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, I can do this more. After I get through the shock that people did not miss me.
The office didn't burn down. Nobody died.
Right. Right. But you know what I mean? Because sometimes we think that we're the most important person. We have to do the work. We have to be the one there. We have to be the one overseeing things. We have to run it like a boss kind of thing. And when we think like that, we tied up with all those tasks. And we don't delegate, and we don't trust people. And then you have at the other end people who don't want to be responsible, and they just kind of keep their head down. They just go to work and they just want to do the work, and they don't want to look at the management of the business. And then they don't know where the business is going. They don't know any of the numbers, the metrics. So we should be able to get a blend of that and still maintain a healthy lifestyle. We should not drive ourselves crazy. And it's funny because people always say, my patients do this, or my customers do this to me, and my family is this and that. And it's all, so what are you going to do about it? Because you can't just let people run your life. But
right.
you have to come to that realization that you're totally responsible for pretty much almost everything and how you react to things.
Well, I think one of the more difficult things is coming to that realization on your own is not only difficult, it often doesn't happen at all because you can't see the picture if you're in the frame. In many cases, it's necessary to have somebody outside the frame help you see the picture, which is what you do with your clients now.
Right. And sometimes they say something, and to me, it's clear as day how to solve it.
Absolutely.
Right. And part of it is because I've been through it. I've done it, right? So having somebody who actually have done similar work, in the same setting, deal with similar issue is always helpful. And I'm like I mentioned a couple of times already, I think I'm just really blessed when I'm in, certain conference and I'm with certain company of people that they help me see the big picture, right? They help me see the possibility. And then they drag me along, like, look, we know you can do this. I mean, I look back and it literally took me 2 years before I told my mentor, I think I'm ready to go talk to the dentist, because I was fighting her all the way. I said, there are a lot of consultants out there already in the industry. It's not like a big, huge industry. They're going to look at me and think, what do you know? Because they've been doing consulting for 30 years and I've been a dentist for 25 years. They watched me grow up. But I think what I brought to the table is my own perspective, my own process, and my own unique story.
I agree. And I say, thank God for the fact that you went through that for 2 years, because now you're the perfect person to help other people through it.
Yeah, I firmly believe that I can make a difference. And I know that is not easy. Whenever you come out and you say, I can help you do this, right? First thing people do is they just look at you and say, really, what do you know?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it takes more explaining or more putting yourself out there so people know. And we're not used to that. It took me 2 years to start doing video. I started training with Brennan Bouchard in 2015. And, he always say, you need to, like, you guys all need to get your message out there on, as your business, and you need to be on video. And it took me 2 years to start saying, you know what, I'm just going to do the video. And now I'm doing one Facebook Live almost every day.
Almost every day. Wow.
Yeah. Because I just felt that I need to be out there telling people that they need to do stuff.
I agree. Well, you have made a difference. You are making a difference. And I appreciate you sharing. I could go on listening to you for hours. Your story is fascinating. It's highly motivating. And I'm glad you chose to share it with me and my listeners on my show. And so thank you, Dr. Emily. I appreciate you being on today.
I really appreciate you inviting me on. I'm very open to sharing the story, because I know that somebody along the line may have picked on one or two details. They may think that, that's where they are, and they can see the possibilities. Because I always tell people, if I were to look back and thinking how I came to this country with hope and faith, and where I'm at right now, where I'm on some international magazine, I'm on some trade journals, international trade journals, in dentistry, Dental Town, that I'm able to work with people like Sharon Lecter, that I go to seminars put on by Dan Kennedy, right? Which is a good investment.
I agree.
And I go for several years. And, and being on your show, I've heard about you and everything. And so it's just like, things can happen if you're very intentional, and if you really want it and you put the effort into it. And I tell my dental friends, I am out to change the dental industry first before I go to the other one. But we got to change. I can't have people just complain and be happy and go through the motion with what they've been doing, because we just have so much more to offer. And we need to be a little bit more ambitious in serving others and putting out positive things.
Amen. And your life has been a tribute to that. And I appreciate you sharing that. What's the best way, if somebody wants to get in contact with you or find out more information about you, what's the best way to do that?
They can go to my website. It's dremilyletran.com. So it's DREMILYLETRAN. They can also download my ebook. So I have an ebook that I share my story and some of the business strategies that I kind of mention here and there here with you. And they go to exceptionalleverage.com/business report. It's a very good ebook that was drafted by one of our friends at the, at GKIC, sharing my story. And then, as you read along, you can click the button and just request a consultation, and we'll get on the phone and we chat, and we'll see if I can be a catalyst to help the professional, the business owner, just fast track their way to success.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that with my listeners. Dr. Emily,
You're
thanks
welcome.
again for being on the show. Hope you'll come back one day soon. I really appreciate you sharing.
Thank you so much, Dan. And thank you, everybody, for listening on the show. And thank you so much for doing such a great job sharing and educating everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that is a wrap for another Off the Chain show. Thank you for tuning in, K9 Crew, and we will be back in your earbuds next time. K9 Crew, before you run off, I want to remind you, Doberman Dan has set up an Off the Chain hotline. Call in, tell us you love us. It's even better if you tell us you hate us. It doesn't matter what you say. All you have to do is call in, leave a message. The number is 321-424-6043. Again, Off the Chain hotline, 321-424-6043.
This is the podcastfactory.com.